Here we go. So this, in the Normans paper, the paper 2, the Normans section, you're going to get a question which asks you how convincing is an interpretation about something. In this case, the question is how convincing is interpretation C about the rebellion of Hereward the Wake? And then it says explain your answer using interpretation C and your own knowledge. So there are 4 steps I want you to sort of think about in answering it. And the first one is, well, what's the interpretation telling you? The second one is, what knowledge do you have that would support what you see here to explain it? Thirdly, potentially then you might look to see, well, what knowledge do you have that would perhaps disagree with this, or maybe suggest something that it doesn't tell you the whole picture. And then finally, some sort of judgment overall, how persuasive is this particular interpretation, okay? So I'm just going to go through it very quickly. So we're not really worried about the provenance for this type of question, but this is from a history book, and this is what Frank Barlow, who's the historian, says. He says, order was fast returning to the English kingdom. Only in the Fens, which is in East Anglia, where Hereward and his companions, where Hereward and his companions in possession of Ely Abbey was the country unsubdued. So unsubdued means there was the Normans were not in control. Okay, the king decided to suppress, take control of this last centre of disaffection. A short campaign based on Cambridge cleaned up the Fens. Hereward escaped, and his future actions belong to folklore rather than history. So the first thing is, what's this interpretation telling us about the rebellion of Hereward the Wake? What I take from this is that it's telling us that the Fens, let me just underline it, which is in East Anglia, was the last place. So it was only here where there were rebels left. And I think the suggestion there is that it was quite a straightforward and simple means to get rid of this last rebellion. It was just in one place and they got rid of it quickly. So that's what I would start with. And I would always start with something like this interpretation suggests that the Fens was the last place not under Norman control, and that William managed to stop the rebellion quickly. Okay, so that's basically what I'm getting from that interpretation. Now, what I would like to do next is to think, well, what do I know about the rebellion that would support what I see here? So, for me, I would say, yes, that is true. I think it was one of the last major rebellions that hadn't yet been suppressed, so I think that's true. And I'd want to say why. I'd want to say why Hereward was doing this. And I'd want to explain that I know that he was angry because his lands had been seized, his brother had been killed. And so in response, yes, he did launch ambushes on the Normans with the help of the Danes and the Anglo-Saxon leader Morcar. So I'm going to say, yeah, there's some of what he says here is true. So there we go. It is true that there was a rebellion in the Fens led by Hereward. And I'm just going to explain it to show the examiner I've got some knowledge of this to support it. He was angry at the Normans for taking his land and killing his brother. He, forgive me if I squeeze this, he launched ambush attacks with the help of the Danes and Anglo-Saxon leader Morcar. Right, there you go. I've used some good knowledge there to agree with it. Now, Do I think this tells the whole picture? Well, actually, I don't really. For me, I think this bit is perhaps either underplaying how the threat, okay, potentially. So I'm going to just explain why I think it's slightly underplaying that threat. So I'll say, however, I feel Barlow underplays the threat. Make it nice and simple like that. In fact, the Normans struggled at first to defeat Hereward. He was able to hide in the watery marshes, and the Normans did not have the local knowledge to find him at first. So there you go, I've used some more knowledge to explain why I don't think it tells the whole picture. Which leaves me with one last bit, which is a judgment. So for me, what is this good? Yes, it's good because it tells us it's true that this was a final rebellion against the Normans, but I don't think the defeat, I think with its weaknesses, I think it doesn't quite give the overall impression of actually that the Normans did struggle at first. So yeah, it is true that this rebellion marked the end of serious challenges to the Normans, but it wasn't quite as easy to overcome as it suggests. There we go. Give this slightly messy writing. Okay, so there's my straightforward answer. I've used some knowledge. I've said what it tells you. I've said what it tells me. I've used some knowledge to agree and perhaps to say why it's missing something, and I've given a judgment. And that's how I would answer a question like that.